Once you understand this, you're going to be able to read and memorize pretty much anything. It is such a foolproof method, completely built on neuroscience, and it's something that I use every single time I need to read a textbook. Hey, I'm Erin, I'm a second year student at Cambridge, so I read a lot of textbooks, and I really need to memorize the content of those textbooks in order to do well in my exams. And I'm sure you're the same whether you're across GCSEs, A-levels, at university, at college. It is so important that you're able to recall the information that you read. And actually, being able to do this is seen as something that is like mythical, that hardly anyone is able to do. Literally anybody can do it because the steps are super simple, because your brain works in predictable ways. And I'm going to break down exactly how you're doing this. The first step is honestly the most important one, and that is you need to be priming your brain. People don't like to do this because it adds on reading time. It's really crucial that you do this because it is what builds sort of success around reading. It's what makes it actually worthwhile for you to be doing. And priming essentially involves you taking the textbook and you just skimming through the amount that you're reading. So whether it's a chapter, whether it's a couple of chapters, you're just going to skim through. You're going to read the bold headings. You're going to take them in. If there are any specific call-out boxes that have definitions, that have keywords, read those. Have a look over any diagrams. Have a look over any key formulae. Anything that is sort of picked out as being important, you're just going to read over. You're not going to read slowly and try and comprehend it all. You're just going to sort of read it such that it makes an impression in your brain, shall we say. By doing this, you're not trying to build an understanding. What you are trying to do is build familiarity in your brain with the content that is in front of you. So essentially, you want your brain to recognize what is in front of you. And the reason you're doing this is because subconsciously, your brain is processing this information, such that when you go back to it, when you read in depth, your brain is then able to pick out, okay, I saw this before, and this linked to this area over here. Oh, okay, yeah, that links into this particular definite. It begins to make these connections without you actually having to put much effort in, because priming your brain is going to take 5-10 minutes tops, and it's a crucial 5 or 10 minutes that allows you to then work through the entire rest of this reading process and memorization process a lot faster. This works because neurons that are partially active are easier to strengthen. So it actually becomes a lot easier for you to structure and store the information in your long-term memory versus if you're going in completely cold. It's like you wouldn't just run a marathon without training and without warming up. Think of priming as you're warming up for the actual reading process, because at the end of the day, your brain is a muscle. You want it to be awake before you try and encode new memories. So priming is what allows you to do that. Now you can get into the in-depth reading, and you want to be reading in small chunks. So you can choose how to do this. You can either read page by page. I don't tend to do this. I tend to read sort of like sub-chapter by sub-chapter, because generally a big chapter of a textbook is going to be broken down with smaller headings, and I will read one section at a time. The reason you're doing this is because your working memory can hold 4 pieces of information in it at a time. That is not many pieces of information at all. And you want to give your brain time to process that information from the working memory into longer term storage. And the way that you do that is you read in these little small chunks. If you read in these massive long chunks, you might feel like you're getting through it quicker, and you probably will get through it quicker. But biologically, if you're not remembering a lot of it, you're going to be experiencing a lot of memory leakage, because your brain simply cannot cope with a massive influx of information. That's not how your brain is wired. So what you should be doing is, after each of these small chunks, so after each page or sort of like sub-chapter, you want to be giving yourself a pause to just vocalize and explain what you have just read in your own words. This obviously works best if you are in a private space where you can talk, or if you're with friends and you can talk. If you are in a public library, please don't start yapping. People are not going to like you. Just do it inside your head. But what you're going to do is you're just going to talk through, okay, this is what I learned. This is how that relates to previous things. I'm just going to explain some key concepts, some key definitions, and it's going to take 2 or 3 minutes. And then you're going to move on to the next chunk. The reason you're doing this is active recall. As soon as you're learning something new, you're going straight into active recall. Reading is very, very passive. If it forms memory connections, it only forms very weak ones. Active recall, what it does is you've just sort of fired together a bunch of neurons as you were understanding this new piece of information. This is something new that's getting encoding in your brain. Okay, now you're recalling it. You're retracing over this neuron path that you've just created, making it stronger. Because the more times you recall a certain piece of information, the more times these neurons are firing together, the stronger their connection. And if you're doing it instantaneously, after learning, that's going to mean that it takes a lot longer for you to forget that new piece of information than it would if you're not instantly using active recall. And you're going to do that process all the way through the textbook for the bit that you need to be reading. Once you have finished, your job does not end there. I know that this is taking longer than you just opening, reading, and closing. But when you open, read, and close, do you actually remember most of the information? No, you do not. And these are the changes that you need to be making in order to actually remember that information. So what you want to be doing is you close the textbook and you give yourself 5 minutes, just put on a 5-minute timer, and you're going to blurt down as much as you can remember about everything that you have just read. Blurt it down. By blurting, I mean pen, paper, and just write down in any random order. It doesn't need to look pretty. It doesn't need to be a beautiful mind map. Just put pen to paper and write down as much as you can possibly remember. Again, active recall. So you're firing over these neurons. Now, what I want you to do once you have finished that is you're going to re-skim over everything that you've just read. You can skim over the body text as well because you've now read it, you kind of understand it. Just skim over, and if there's anything important that you missed from your blurting, you're going to note it down on a separate sheet of paper. These are going to be the key areas that you begin with next time you approach this particular topic or subject area. And genuinely, it is that simple. That's how you're going to absorb a textbook, any textbook, like a sponge. It's what I do when I really need to get to grips with some difficult law concept or have a look at a particular study and really remember it. Because like I say, this is applicable outside of textbooks to academic papers, to lecture notes, to whatever it is that you have to really learn, understand, and memorize. I really hope this helps. Let me know in the comments if you do use this and whether it works for you. As ever, I will see you in the next video.